the time, GDP growth was up 1.95%. It was also clear that that growth rate was lower than what it was at the end of the fourth quarter of 2017. So far, listening to the central bank governor, I'm more or less seeing a very concerned MPC, that is faced with possible, higher headline inflation between now and end of the year. Obviously, the reserve, like my colleague had mentioned, is down by $3 billion. The risk, to that reserve still remains on the upside, aside from the fact that the oil prices are a bit robust at the moment, and also growth. It was also very interesting to hear.
Christian, may I interject there very quickly?
Said that they expect
Christian,
the economy to grow.
Christian, may I interject very quickly? Yes, of course, we're getting that now that the monetary policy has left key policy rate unchanged at 14%. That's the decision of so headline interest rate has been left unchanged at 14%. So, Christian, let's continue that conversation from here. So we have a hold that is in consensus, that is consistent with what most analysts' consensus really was.
Yes, so as I was saying, and like I mentioned earlier, that conditions, haven't essentially changed materially from the last MPC meeting to date. So hence why, the market had expected that the rates will be kept unchanged. So what the MPC pretty much did at the last meeting were guidance as to what would be expected. And from what we've seen so far, it's been in line. The reserves under pressure, the naira at the higher window, depreciating. The inflation, month-on-month inflation stepping up clearly at 1% level now over the past 3 months, essentially. And then the headline inflation, reversing from a decline, to an increase. And then very importantly, growth as well, coming out at a very disappointing rate. And like I was trying to say earlier, very interesting to hear that the CBN actually expects that the MPC expects the economy to grow at 1.7% level by the end of the year, which is quite low, compared to the 2% the IMF had expected at the beginning of the year. So clearly, it looks like the risks are to the downside, to be honest, from both, and looking at some monetary policy parameters and also, generally for economic growth. So I think this decision to stay hold makes some sense, because if we take rates further, beyond this level, whilst we are attracting the foreign investors, why that might result to, attracting foreign investors, and then, some bit of, inflows into the system through the US dollar, we know the consequences of that, for the local, businesses by virtue of, government yields perhaps going up, and then, interest rates also rising. And then if you take rates down from here, it might also usher in a new wave of inflationary pressure, and then even from the FX component as well. So I think this decision, like I mentioned earlier, is quite consistent. And in terms of impact on the market, I think because the market broadly expects this decision, I think business would most likely remain as usual, from trading, tomorrow. So what is very important is for the market to continue to watch out for how the central bank, works with its monetary policy instruments, through the OMO channels. So that would continue to determine how rates move, from today. And then I also like the fact that the MPC had also, called for the need for some, stepped up interventions from the fiscal authorities. I think that had been a call that the monetary authorities have been making over the last 1 year now. If we refer to the GDP figure that was released, for instance, the fact that the oil sector was a major drag, clearly had nothing to do with the central bank. It was more or less a fiscal, situation at the time, because we had, leakages and we were not able to meet up production. So aside from, ensuring that, policies within the oil and gas sector, is very favorable and timely as well. The fiscal authorities also have to do a lot more in terms of stimulating, smaller businesses, tax benefits, ensuring that, credit is very much available to that, segment of the economy as well, and, broader policies, to be honest.
We understand your views here, but if we look at what Ayode Jebo said about a minute ago, Victor, bringing this to you, do you think we need more special focused interventions from the central bank in terms of putting some hundreds of billions aside, setting it aside for other specific sectors of the economy? Do you think the central bank is doing much more than it should do, when some of the folks from the outside are saying, look, the central bank should get out of the special interventions, as it were, let the fiscal authorities handle it? let the fiscal authorities handle it?
Yes, I agree. I think the fiscal authorities have more or less almost been asleep. Nothing has been actually happening in that space. And most of the pressures are actually been on the central bank. And I think they are more or less overburdened. The truth is that there's a limit to what the central bank can actually do. And they're actually taking the responsibility of both the fiscal and monetary policy. For us, we think the fiscal authorities need to actually step up and actually spur activity in terms of economic activities to actually improve our GDP numbers, our output, and in terms of growth in the real sector. So for me, the central bank is actually overstretched. They've come out with policies over the last 2 MPC meetings. They've come out, they said they want the banks to actually lend from their CRR once you can find a business that you can give a 2-year moratorium, and we can lend from your CRR, which is actually sitting with the CBN. They've also said if there's a blue chip company